News: a Sacramento man convicted of sexually assaulting his disabled stepdaughter was sentenced in court today, but he won't be serving much time in prison because of a legal loophole. KCRA 3's Mike Lurie shows us why prosecutors and now a state senator are trying to change that law.
Want to know the shocking loopholes criminals use to escape jail time?
This was the most vulnerable victim I've seen in this court.
These unbelievable tricks are changing the justice system. Watch now to uncover how the system is being exploited. Don't miss out.
So a 21-year-old man has avoided jail after raping a 13-year-old girl when he was 17 years old.
Yes, instead of a prison sentence, the judge handed Sean Hogg 270 hours of community service in line with new guidelines in Scotland recommending that under-25s aren't sent to prison.
This could change everything you know about crime. Bail loopholes. In 2023, a disturbing trend emerged as criminals exploited loopholes in the bail system. Offenders, knowing the law, were able to bypass jail time, and this became a major issue in the justice system. New York saw an alarming rise in offenders committing crimes while out on bail. In one shocking case, a 2019 robbery suspect managed to walk free on a technicality, only to commit a series of robberies in 2020. The bail reform, meant to prevent overcrowding, had its drawbacks. Some criminals used it as a free pass to continue illegal activities. In January 2025, the NYC District Attorney's Office reported a 62% increase in bail violations due to such loopholes. As lawmakers debate changes, victims and public officials demand stricter controls to prevent this ongoing cycle of crime and release. In the end, the system must adapt to avoid turning a reform into a loophole that criminals can exploit. Sovereign citizens. In recent years, the sovereign citizen movement has gained attention for its role in obstructing legal proceedings. Criminals involved in this movement often argue that they are not subject to the laws of the country, presenting pseudo-legal documents to avoid prosecution. A prime example occurred in 2022 when a man in Florida used sovereign citizen arguments to challenge his felony charges. He argued that the court had no jurisdiction over him, citing a mix of misunderstood legal terms and conspiratorial beliefs. Despite these arguments being consistently rejected by the courts, it leads to costly delays, often giving offenders the chance to escape harsher penalties. These delays can drag on for months, leaving victims waiting for justice. The movement continues to be a challenge for the judicial system, and many advocates push for stronger countermeasures to stop its abuse. Plea bargains. Plea bargaining has long been a controversial tactic used by criminals to avoid harsher sentences. In 2024, a well-known case in California involved a criminal who faced life in prison for multiple offenses. However, through plea bargaining, he was able to reduce his sentence drastically, pleading guilty to lesser charges in exchange for a much lighter sentence. This tactic is often used by defense lawyers to save their clients from maximum sentences, even if they are guilty of serious crimes. While plea deals help reduce court backlogs, they can sometimes lead to offenders receiving disproportionately light sentences. In this case, the criminal's sentence was reduced from life to just 15 years, allowing him to eventually re-enter society much sooner than expected. Critics argue that plea bargains, while effective in many ways, can enable dangerous individuals to evade the full consequences of their actions. Jurisdictional loopholes. Criminals sometimes exploit jurisdictional challenges to delay their trials or dismiss cases entirely. In 2023, a prominent case in Texas saw a suspect accused of fraud use a jurisdictional loophole to question whether the court had the authority to hear his case. The suspect argued that the crime took place across multiple states, creating confusion over which court had the proper jurisdiction. This tactic caused significant delays, as the court had to address the jurisdictional issue before proceeding. The case, which was expected to go to trial in early 2024, was postponed for several months. While this may seem like a minor legal technicality, it effectively gave the accused more time outside of prison, delaying justice for the victims. These jurisdictional loopholes continue to be exploited by offenders who seek to delay trials, hoping that time will work in their favor. Diversion programs. Diversion programs are often used as an alternative to incarceration, allowing offenders to avoid jail time by participating in rehabilitation or community service. In 2022, a young offender in Ohio who committed a non-violent drug-related crime was offered a diversion program instead of jail. By completing drug counseling and community service, the offender's case was dismissed, and he avoided a criminal record. While these programs are designed to help offenders reintegrate into society, critics argue they can be exploited by criminals to avoid harsher penalties. In the case of the Ohio offender, despite his involvement in multiple drug offenses, he was allowed to walk free after completing the program. Advocates for stronger legal measures warn that while diversion programs help with rehabilitation, they should not be used as loopholes for those who need to face the full consequences of their actions. Mandatory minimums. Criminals sometimes manipulate mandatory minimum sentencing laws to secure lighter sentences through cooperation with authorities. In 2021, a high-profile drug dealer in California managed to reduce his sentence from 25 years to 10 years by agreeing to provide information on other criminals involved in a larger network. This is a common tactic used to avoid serving the full mandatory minimum sentence. By offering valuable intelligence, criminals can strike deals with prosecutors, resulting in sentence reductions. In some cases, this leads to dangerous offenders receiving far lighter sentences than the law intended. While the aim is to dismantle criminal organizations, these agreements raise concerns about the safety of communities and the fairness of sentencing laws. Critics argue that criminals who exploit this system are often let off too easily. Discovery violations. Criminals often exploit discovery violations, errors made by prosecutors in failing to provide evidence in a timely manner, leading to case dismissals. In 2023, in New York, a case involving a notorious gang leader was dismissed when the prosecution failed to disclose critical evidence within the required timeframe. This error, a breach of discovery rules, allowed the criminal to avoid facing trial and walk free. Such violations have become more frequent in recent years, with prosecutors under pressure to meet deadlines. When crucial evidence is not shared or properly documented, criminals can use this to their advantage, resulting in case dismissals or delayed trials. This loophole not only frustrates victims, but also challenges the integrity of the justice system, as it allows offenders to escape justice on technical grounds. Appeals and post-conviction relief. Criminals sometimes exploit appeals and post-conviction relief to overturn convictions or reduce sentences, even after being found guilty. In 2020, a convicted Texas murderer, sentenced to 40 years in prison, used a post-conviction appeal claiming that new evidence had surfaced that could exonerate him. This led to a lengthy legal battle, and after 2 years, his sentence was reduced by 10 years. While appeals are meant to correct genuine errors, they are often used as a tactic by offenders seeking to avoid the consequences of their crimes. These prolonged legal proceedings can drag on for years, providing criminals with opportunities to avoid full punishment. In this case, the appeal allowed the murderer to secure a reduced sentence, ultimately leaving victims and families frustrated with the delay in justice. Sentencing manipulation. Criminals often exploit sentencing guidelines to secure more lenient penalties. In 2021, a well-known fraudster in Florida who had stolen millions from unsuspecting victims used specific provisions in sentencing laws to reduce his punishment. He successfully argued for a lighter sentence by highlighting his cooperation with authorities during the investigation. By manipulating the system, some offenders managed to turn their serious crimes into opportunities for reduced sentences. In this case, despite the massive financial damage caused by his fraud, the criminal sentence was reduced by 5 years, sparking outrage among the victims. This tactic, although legal, allows criminals to receive lighter penalties, sometimes undermining the justice system and its intended deterrence. Sovereign citizen defense. Criminals sometimes use the sovereign citizen defense to avoid prosecution by claiming they are not subject to the laws of the land. In 2022, a Michigan man facing multiple charges of assault and battery attempted to argue that the court had no jurisdiction over him, citing the sovereign citizen movement. Despite courts consistently rejecting these claims, they create delays in legal proceedings, costing taxpayers and obstructing justice. In this case, the man's defense caused a 6-month delay in his trial, ultimately giving him more time outside of jail. While these arguments are often dismissed, they continue to disrupt the legal system, allowing criminals to evade swift justice for extended periods. You won't believe the next story. Don't miss our upcoming video, the most controversial court cases that shook the world. Hit subscribe now to stay updated with the latest jaw-dropping content. You won't want to miss what's coming next.